Hey everyone, my name is Dillon Gonzalez. I'm the editorial director of GeekVibesNation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast. And welcome to a brand new episode of No Streaming Required, your weekly deep dive into all the latest and greatest in the world of physical media. Welcome back. We have another very exciting episode for you. In fact, it is one of my favorite episodes of the month. It is another installment of Exploring the Warner Archive. This is the episode where we typically go over some of the new Warner Archive releases and also explore some of the titles that maybe you missed out on over the decade plus that they've been around, being one of my favorite boutique labels around. And we have some really exciting titles that I'm going to dig into shortly. But first, I have a couple of other boutique label titles that I wanted to get in front of you as soon as possible. So let me get to those first before we go down our Warner Archive hole. First, start off with Lionsgate Limited and their somewhat recent release of The Way of the Gun on 4K Ultra HD. As you can see here, you got a nice lenticular cover. This came out a couple months ago. Mine's had a long journey to getting to me, but I'm glad to finally be able to check it out. This is the directorial debut of Christopher McQuarrie. If you know that name, you might know him from directing many of the recent Mission Impossible movies. He did the first Jack Reacher movie. He's like besties with Tom Cruise. But this is his debut, which isn't as impressive as some of those titles that I've mentioned. But it's pretty decent. It's more, he was also hot off writing the screenplay for The Usual Suspects, and decided to get into directing and kind of almost like a Tarantino knockoff in some regards. It's Ryan Philippe and Benicio del Toro as like a pair of criminals who are always getting into different situations, and they hear about a potential payday that they can capitalize on by kidnapping a woman who is a surrogate for a very powerful and rich man. And the woman is played by Juliette Lewis. And so they kidnap this woman, and they kind of find out that they got a little bit over their heads as people start trying to track her down, including a very menacing James Caan. Taye Diggs is one of her bodyguards. And just Scott Wilson, who people may know as Herschel from The Walking Dead, is kind of the primary criminal figure in this. There's a lot of really good cast members in here, and it's a pretty twisty, action-packed tale. A lot of shootouts and interesting set pieces that are executed pretty well. The dialogue is very kind of Tarantino-esque, very quippy and talkative in a way that's very supposed to be kind of edgy and humorous and stuff. Similar to some of Tarantino's dialogue, but in a much less finessed way. In this title, there's definitely several interactions that have not aged the best. They're very kind of homophobic and kind of just... these are supposed to be kind of like a little bit dirtbag characters, but you're also supposed to be rooting for them. But then some of the things they say, they just kind of put you off a little bit. This isn't the entire movie, but there are just certain dated aspects that just didn't really age as well. But all the other stuff, like with some of the action set pieces and just the interactions between different characters, it does work pretty well. It's not, like I said, it's far from my favorite Christopher McQuarrie movie, but as a title that I missed out on in the early 2000s when it came out, and I'm now rediscovering, there are things I like about it, there's things I don't like about it, but overall I think it's a pretty entertaining time. And if you're a fan of the movie, it's nice to be getting this on 4K. As you may have seen, this does only come with a 4K disc. I'm not sure why they didn't include a Blu-ray disc with it. I've never owned this on any other format, but from what I've read, the old Blu-ray disc, it wasn't the best looking. It had like a lot of DNR and just wasn't like a very natural looking presentation. This has been given a new 4K restoration from the original camera negative, and it looks really great with Dolby Vision. Everything looks quite natural, and all there yes, there are some kind of softer shots that are inherent to the source, but everything looks really nice and textured, and film grain and all is intact. Like I said, nice earthy colors with the color palette that they're going for is achieved very well, and it's nuanced with the Dolby Vision. You have a new Dolby Atmos track that is implemented that it hits when it needs to, like whenever bullets start flying. They're really impactful, and it makes some nice use of the overhead channels. But the dialogue is also very clear, and that's a very primary aspect to this track, is just the quippy dialogue. But everything sounds nicely well mixed and everything. Maybe would have been preferred to also have the original 5.1 track as an option, but the Atmos track does sound good. You do get a couple of new and archival special features. You have an archival commentary track. You get a nice retrospective piece and a new interview, and then some archival interview footage as well. So altogether, a nice mixture of new and older stuff, and AV upgrade is definitely a major plus for this one. And then just some nice cool steelbook packaging. You got the lenticular slip cover over top of it. Lionsgate Limited, for those who are new to them, I've talked about several other titles since they launched at the end of last year. They are a dedicated website run by Lionsgate. They're a storefront. You will not be able to purchase this anywhere else besides the Lionsgate Limited website. So if you want this or my next title that I'm going to be talking about, you need to go to the Lionsgate Limited website. They have a lot of really great stuff. My suggestion would probably be to save up a couple of titles and buy enough to hit the free shipping threshold, which I think might be like $100 or so. But if you save up and want 3 or 4 or 5 titles, you can get free shipping. But they ship and pack pretty well usually, so that's also a plus, with lots of bubble wrap and everything. So things, if you do buy from that storefront, you typically won't receive anything that is damaged, which is a plus. Just want to be clear on where to get these titles, because having just one source for a title is kind of limiting, I know, and it can be frustrating, especially to our international fans. But if you can find a way to get your hands on it, which is just going to that website, The Way of the Gun, I think, is a worthy 4K upgrade and is a nice representation of this movie. If you're a fan, this is definitely the way to own it. And as I mentioned, the Lionsgate Limited is also handling the next title, which is continuing their Best Drawn Video series, which is All of Me, from Steve Martin in a Carl Reiner film. Also have Lily Tomlin starring alongside him. This is an 80s comedy in which Lily Tomlin's, she is a dying woman who gets her spirit accidentally transported into Steve Martin instead of the woman who is supposed to be receiving her spirit. And hilarity ensues as Steve Martin balances trying to control his half of his body, while Lily Tomlin is in his head and controlling the other half of his body. And they're trying to kind of get her spirit out of him. And also kind of figure out a little bit about some kind of nefarious things that are going on with her inheritance estate and everything. So this is a pretty amusing movie. It's kind of a twist on the body swap movie where both people are in one body. And these people, they do not like one another. But of course, they're kind of enemies to lovers trope of just... where the more they are with one another and they are kind of saddled with one another, they begin to find charm in one another. And there's a lot of hijinks and stuff. It's not the most uproarious movie, but there were definitely some things that did make me laugh quite a bit. There is a revelation at the very end of the movie that I will not spoil, but it is one of the more insane kind of plot developments that I've thought of in a little while, so that was an interesting just kind of note for the screenplay. Really good physical comedy from Martin. Mostly you're getting a lot of Lily Tomlin in voiceover or in kind of like reflective surfaces once she passes away, with like in mirrors and stuff. You get to see her, but if you're a Lily Tomlin fan, you still do get a good amount of her, but I wish I would have gotten a little bit more. But she is kind of a constant presence vocally. If you kind of like that kind of 80s like high concept comedy, it hits the spot. It's not the best, but it was a good time and I'm glad I watched it. It's restored in HD, but I do have to say that it is one of the weaker transfers that I've seen on Blu-ray. It is from an older master, From what I've heard, I have not had this verified, I believe the elements to this were part of kind of a batch of titles that were, the elements were destroyed in a fire in 2008 on the Universal lot. So what I have heard is that what the prints that were used to make this release were probably the last known existing elements to this movie. So if the choice was not having this movie at all or having a dated transfer, which does look kind of rough, but is definitely far from unwatchable, I'm glad that we did get this on Blu-ray, because I probably wouldn't have tracked it down otherwise for a while. But it is an amusing movie. I wish the original elements were available to get a nice spruce up. But this has actually been, even with that background, the Vestron's line has typically not been the best about restoring their movies. They're really good about adding special features, which I do appreciate. But I kind of wish this line would convert to a 4K line, or that they would just spend a little bit more time remastering the audiovisual quality in addition to getting new special features, because there's a lot of great gems in the Vestron video line that I think could use a nice fresh master, because just because these are older kind of B movies a lot of the time doesn't mean they don't deserve the A treatment, because those are usually the movies that sell the best on physical media, honestly. So I wish this, like all the Vestron video series had better A transfers. I am glad to have this on physical media in some form, even if it's not the best quality. Audio-wise, it holds up a little bit better, a little gauzy at times, but overall it sounds decent enough. Like I said, the special features are where it more so, the line more so thrives. They didn't go all out here, but they do have some nice ones, including a commentary track, an interview, and a couple of video essays, which are pretty lengthy, and so like 20 minutes long each. So you do get some good stuff here, and some trailers and stuff. So a nice release with some drawbacks for this Steve Martin comedy. So if you're a Steve Martin completist, you can now have it on Blu-ray from the Lionsgate Limited website. And yeah, it's a nice time. Not the best, but perfectly enjoyable. So Vestron Video and Lionsgate Limited's all of me. Check it out if it sounds interesting to you, or if you've been wanting to own it. It's a decent release. Now, my next group of titles, these could easily been titles that would be overlooked, similar to what I was just talking about, but these have been given a nice 4K upgrade from Shout Studios. It is their new 4K collection of Blaxploitation Classics Volume 2. This is a 6-film set, which I will show off all of these films, each film given their own individual case, with 4K and Blu-ray discs that are each from the same master. So we got Foxy Brown, we got Friday Foster. I believe this is Cotton Comes to Harlem here. Next should be Bucktown. Then we've got Slaughter. And then we got Slaughter's Big Ripoff here. So I'll kind of go through each of these and show these off in a little bit more detail. But the first volume of this came out a couple of months ago in May. I haven't been able to check that one out. But the second volume I think is pretty great. And these are some of the more entertaining Blaxploitation movies I've been able to see. Foxy Brown with the great Pam Grier is a revenge tale about like Pam Grier trying to get revenge for the guys who took out the man she loves, and she's kind of betrayed by some of her family and everything. And it's one of the better ones in the set. Friday Foster is Pam Grier again in a reporter mode and trying to track down all these people who are trying to take out black leaders. Cotton Comes to Harlem, which I thought would be a movie about a man named Cotton coming to Harlem, but it is literal Cotton coming to Harlem. Is about some people with like, there's like a reverend who is kind of taking down, or kind of like talking up people and like trying to take advantage of them. And there's like a bale of cotton that has money in it that everyone's trying to kind of track down. And there's all kinds of people involved and everything. Bucktown is more so a revenge tale where you have a man whose brother is killed coming into town and trying to clean up kind of the racist cops, and then brings in another element that kind of gets a little bit out of hand as well, and that they're trying to settle that, all that kind of stuff. And then Slaughter's big ripoff, which I just showed off. These two, Jim Brown as Slaughter, an ex-Green Beret, who is also on a path. There's a lot of revenge on this movie, so revenge tales and stuff. I liked all of these, and there was not a dud in the bunch for me. My personal favorite was probably Cotton Comes to Harlem. There's just a lot of interesting kind of dynamics with the characters and a lot of subplots. You have Red Fox in a small role as well. Everything in here was pretty entertaining. And it makes me want to go and pick up the first volume that I missed out on, because I've seen several Blaxploitation movies over like the last decade, especially as I've been getting more into the genre. But these have been some of my favorites, and I think this is a nicely curated set. And from everything I've seen, the first set looks equally as good. Each film has been giving a 4K restoration from the original camera negative, presented in their original mono. It is my understanding that Slaughter's Big Ripoff has not been provided in HD in a previous release, so that is making its Blu-ray and 4K debut. Each of these films look fantastic in terms of their restoration. I did not notice any major blemishes and stuff. These are all kind of like not quite grindhousey movies, but like these were kind of like gritty 70s movies, but they've been cleaned up in terms of like no nicks and scratches and everything, but all the original lovely film grain is intact. The Dolby Vision brings out all the complex colors within each location. Especially like whenever you get into like Slaughter's Big Ripoff, there are some kind of like sunnier, more tropical locations that are kind of delved into that kind of leap off the screen a little bit more. But even kind of the more like Cotton Comes to Harlem, like some of the like the more like metallic or kind of dingy locations around town, those are given the proper complexity that while they may not be like traditionally beautiful, they are accurate to what they are supposed to look like. In terms of the audio presentation, most of them are pretty solid, but those are probably the weakest aspect of this collection, just because, like I said, these were more kind of lower budget productions, so the sound quality can sometimes be a little bit hollow or just not quite as crisp as maybe some movies with a bigger production from this era may have been. That's not bad audio quality, but just keep your expectations in check, and just knowing that the audio is not maybe like a perfect 10. There are some shortcomings in terms of just like a little bit of fidelity issues and a little bit of instability, but overall they do sound good, just a little bit of shortcomings here and there. Special features, there are a decent amount. They're mostly focused on Foxy Brown, where you do get a commentary track and 3 new interviews and stuff, and like different well, not new interviews, there are 3 interviews, some of which I think are new and some of which are archival, because I know one is with Sid Haig, who has passed away within recent years, so I think that's an older one. And then you do get the part 2 of this expansive documentary, which I see has started out in the first Blaxploitation volume and has continued on here. So you get a lot of great interviews here with a wide range of people. So it's a pretty expansive documentary about the Blaxploitation genre, which is very valuable. One thing I do also want to mention is that Slaughter's Big Ripoff, the last film in the set, as I mentioned, I don't think it's received a Blu-ray release previously. The original soundtrack included was made up a lot of, from what I understand, James Brown music. That has, from what I understand, never been released on home entertainment in its intact form, in terms of even like VHS or anything like that. None of it has had the James Brown soundtrack, and that is the case here. You do not they were not able to clear those classic James Brown songs for Slaughter's Big Ripoff. As someone who has never seen the movie before, I obviously did not see it in theaters because I wasn't alive at the point. I do not know how this sounded originally, but everything sounded good in terms of like sound, like song quality or song choices within this movie. And I think it's what people probably know best from seeing it on home video and stuff over the years. But if you were hoping to get that James Brown soundtrack restored at long last, that unfortunately did not happen. But it is consistent with previous releases. So overall, I think this is a really knockout set from Shout Studios. They've done a really nice job here. The Blaxploitation genre is a rich one, and I think I've heard there's at least like enough movies for one more set from American International Pictures, which are most of these come from. If they expand out to even more studios beyond that, we could get even more. But it's Blaxploitation Classics Volume 2 from Shout Studios. Really, really great release. They've been really knocking out of the park with their box sets this year. So Shout Studios, thank you for this one. It's a really great set for fans of the genre. So make sure to pick it up if you are interested. But enough table setting. We've talked enough about other boutiques. Let's get into our main event, which is the Warner Archive. And I thought that last set would segue nicely into our first new title, and that is another Blaxploitation movie, Melinda, which came out also in the 70s, about a DJ who kind of gets involved with a woman who ends up getting killed. And then he kind of understands that she comes to learn that she was the ex of a powerful gangster figure and she had taken something from him, and he has to kind of deal with the ramifications of that and like try to get revenge for this woman that he became close with. So another revenge tale. It is also entertaining. This one puts a lot of focus on character interactions and like really bringing a lot of personality to each character. So it's a lot more kind of dialogue driven than a lot of the movies in the other set I was talking about. But there is still plenty of action stuff and like kicking ass and all that kind of good stuff. It is an entertaining movie, and I think if you're already on a high from that last set I was talking about from Shout, Melinda, it'll just keep the party going. And Warner Archive did a really nice job with this one. They gave it a 4K restoration from the original camera negative. Looks gorgeous. It is appropriately gritty, but all the damage has been cleared up and everything looks beautiful. No nicks or scratches have remained, but everything just looks nice, colorful, and everything sounds good as well. So the soundtracks have been retained quite well. You do only get a trailer for this one, but audiovisual wise, it is a real winner. So Melinda, if you like Blaxploitation films, also add this one to your order because it is a good time. Another new one we have, going back about a decade or so to 1965, we have Brainstorm. There's been a couple movies with this name, but this is the 1965 version. And we have Jeff Hunter, Anne Francis, Dana Andrew in this kind of noirish thriller in which our protagonist at the very beginning of the movie finds a woman passed out in a car on some train tracks, and he saves her from getting killed, and he kind of comes to learn that this woman was trying to end her life and trying to get away from her husband, who is this very powerful man who ends up giving our protagonist, played by Jeffrey Hunter, a job in his care and as kind of appreciation for saving his wife. But while doing so, our protagonist falls in love with the man's wife and kind of hatches a scheme to get rid of this dirtbag. And he's going to try to get around going to jail by concocting a scheme that will make him seem insane and try to like learn how to properly plead insanity and get away with this crime. And things do not go perfectly, and I won't go beyond that, but it is a nice kind of twisty, dark tale that really goes some places that like it leaves you kind of filled with dread in certain moments and just a little shocked in different ways. It's a very entertaining movie. I thought it was executed quite well, and it has some nice developments I think you'll want to see for yourself. Just kind of had like that dark noirish tinge. So Brainstorm, this has been given a nice Blu-ray release, another 4K restoration of the original camera negative. Black and white, looks fantastic. Nice grayscale, deep black levels, no black crush, nice details and textures on the production design and clothing and all that kind of stuff. No damage to speak of. Everything's been cleaned up very well. You get 2 cartoons that have been restored, and including one with Daffy Duck, and then the original trailer. So Brainstorm from 1965, another one that is worth checking out. I did enjoy this quite a bit, but one that I enjoyed even more was from Vincent Minnelli and his movie The Cobweb. So this has Gloria Graham as the wife of this professor, or kind of this leader, this new kind of person who's going to run this kind of mental institution where there's kind of some troubled patients and stuff. And she is kind of getting tired of him kind of working late nights and stuff while he's trying to kind of get everything settled at his new job. And she kind of gets involved with one of his colleagues, played by Charles Boyer. Her husband starts kind of hanging out with Lauren Bacall's character and some other people. And all within this, there is a lot of drama to deal with drapes. The amount of talk they have about drapes and like getting approval to put up certain drapes is insane. It's a very important part of the plot, but how this all kind of intersects with people with like infidelity and potential drama like leading to violence and all kinds of just interpersonal strife. There is actual violence, but it's more so emotional violence for the most part. This is very twisty, like the cobweb, like spider metaphor. It works quite well with all the people connecting to one another and everything. And Gloria Graham is great in this. It's just kind of like your wife who's just like so desperate to be like for affection and to be loved and everything, and just her kind of getting more desperate as things goes along. I really liked how this turned out, and I very much recommend it if you. It kind of is a noir, but it is also more of a melodrama, I would say, and just like the way these characters like kind of go at one another. I find it very compelling, and it's just over 2 hours long. So it's a pretty decently length movie, but it kept my attention throughout, and it's very entertaining. This is another 4K restoration of the original camera negative. It looks fantastic. This one is in color. It looks great, nice, accurate colors, deep hues, and no blown highlights, anything like that. Everything is kept looking quite great. No damage to speak of. No mishaps that I could tell. You got a restored soundtrack that sounds really nice as well. Short film and a cartoon and a trailer. I know that Warner Archive's a big fan of Vincent Minnelli, and I'm glad because he's made a lot of good movies, and this is a nice discovery for me. So if you like a good melodrama, The Cobweb I think is well worth checking out. A lot of great stars in here, and a really nice sense of style and pacing and all that kind of good stuff. The Cobweb is very entertaining. But Minnelli is not the only classic director getting in on the melodrama from the new releases. We also have Michael Curtiz in his movie Bright Leaf with Gary Cooper, once again Lauren Bacall, and Patricia Neal. So Gary Cooper in this one, we're going back several decades to Gary Cooper being an up and coming tobacco magnate. He has been a man who has been wronged in the past by this kind of more well-to-do man, and he kind of like really wronged his family. So he was kind of trying to make his way in the world and trying to get a little bit of revenge on this man who has a young daughter who catches his eye, and he starts trying to pursue, much against her father's wishes, and all the melodrama that erupts from there of just like whether or not these two, like Cooper and Neil, are actually in love, whether they're playing some kind of game, but with like each other's family histories and values, and how they are trying to get back at one another, or may not be. And then you have Lauren Bacall as like the woman who is kind of a third part of this love triangle, but she's just kind of the woman that Gary Cooper probably should be with, but there's all kinds of like reasons that he wants to kind of stick with Patricia Neal, and there's all kinds of heightened drama and all the drama. It's once again a movie that's nearing 2 hours. It's an hour and 50 minutes, but very much keeps your attention throughout. Just the high stakes world of tobacco production, and lots of great scenes in this one that kept me quite entranced. I've been become a bigger fan of Gary Cooper over the last few years as I've seen more of his work. And this is just another one to add to the pile. Brightleaf, worth checking out, especially on this new Blu-ray, in which you get it from a new 4K restoration of the original camera negative. That's usually what they typically try to use at the Warner Archive if it's available, and it looks great. Once again, pretty much what I've said about the others. No damage, fantastic photography, everything's been preserved very well, pretty much everything you could ask. Audio sounds solid as well. The original mono, I believe. You get 2 cartoons on this one that are in HD, so have been restored. If you're a fan of Michael Curtiz, Gary Cooper, Lauren Bacall, any of these people, or just like a good old-fashioned Hollywood melodrama, Brightleaf, it'll do you well. I know we probably need a little bit of a palate cleanser, so I have something a little lighter, heading over to this kind of romantic musical comedy. We have 2 Weeks with Love, with Jane Powell and Ricardo Montalban, and a young Debbie Reynolds. So this is about a family who kind of goes on a vacation to kind of like a resort, and there are a lot of people that they kind of have activities and everything, and Jane Powell is at this very crucial age where she is like right on the verge between being like a child and heading into adulthood, and she kind of develops a crush on an older man, and she's trying to convince her parents that she should be able to act on more like adult-like and everything. And this does lead to some interactions and kind of conversations that are kind of cringeworthy in terms of like age gap dynamics and just like power dynamics and stuff, that if you look at stuff from a more critical lens, it is kind of skeezy in some aspects. But if your mind is more kind of open to kind of these old Hollywood dynamics, and you aren't kind of like hung up on like the realities of this just kind of improper romance, I think you'll have a good time with this one. So yeah, there was things that I was just kind of like, ooh, that's not great. But it's kind of this era of comedy where I could appreciate what it was doing on other levels, and a lot of the side characters and stuff kept it entertaining and everything. And it was mostly chaste, but it's just, there are some things that just kind of will make you raise your eyebrow if you just think about it a little bit too much. But overall, I did like it. I think it's a really fun musical comedy. I especially like Debbie Reynolds and her role as the sister, who is kind of gets a lot of the jokes of the film. There's a lot of ridiculous things that, in a good way, that my wife did not watch this with me, but I gave her a lot of the rundown of this movie because I just needed to talk about it and stuff. And there was a lot of things that I kind of showed her clips of that really amused me. So I guess that says something, that I like cared enough to share this in pieces with her. And that was a fun time. So if you like romantic musical comedies, 2 Weeks with Love, it's a good one. And it's, once again, another knockout release from Warner Archive. It's a new 4K restoration of the original Technicolor negatives. They do really, really well with Technicolor movies, and this is no exception. Really bright, bold, beautiful colors, especially in kind of like this was probably shot on a set, but like the outside locales and stuff looks really nice. Like the greens and stuff really pop off. A lot of the clothing and stuff's really bright, and that really looks really nice on the screen. Sound is good as well. You get a interview with Jane Powell, you get 2 shorts, you get a cartoon, really nice selection of special features here. So 2 Weeks with Love, make sure to have that on your radar. Going back to a more rousing kind of like swashbuckling type film, we have Errol Flynn in They Died with Their Boots On with his frequent co-star Olivia de Havilland. So this is a dramatization that is very kind to General Custer from his very early days, being kind of a dandy that's like way out of his element in like his military school up until like the Battle of Little Bighorn. This is a very long movie at almost 2.5 hours. And if you want the most charitable reading of Custard possible, this is what you're going to get here. Not going to get into a lot of like politics with like Native Americans and stuff. That's going to be entirely favorable for them. But in terms of just kind of like a respectable Hollywood portrayal of like a historical figure, it's entertaining enough. I know a lot of people really love Errol Flynn. I like him okay. I'm not as high on him as a lot of people seem to be, but he's a good performer, and I understand why he was a big deal back in the day, and he does a decent job in this. I do really like Olivia de Havilland. She does a really nice job, and she's probably the one who captured my attention most. Overall, it's fine, but there are definitely some things that are not kind of like politically correct or just like don't age well in this movie, and especially like some of the Native Americans played by white people, that kind of stuff. So if you don't really like that, just be aware that's on the table here. But I know, like I said, there are a lot of Errol Flynn fans, so this has been long requested. And those who have been waiting for more Errol Flynn titles, this one does look really nice. This does get a 4K restoration of the original camera negative, surprise, surprise, and it looks fantastic. Beautiful transfer. Warner Archive always shows up and delivers some of the best transfers in the game. No encoding issues from what I could tell. Everything looks and sounds really good. This ports over all of the previous DVD offerings. The Warner Night of the Movie features, including like a newsreel. You get a short film. You get cartoons. You get trailers for other films and stuff. So all that is on here. So They Died with Their Boots On. Errol Flynn fans can rest easy that this is a good disc. Kind of going to classic tale of Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. So you have Robert Taylor as Lancelot, Ava Gardner as Guinevere, and Mel Ferrer as Arthur. So it's kind of that classic knight's tale, but it's more so there is some action and everything and duplicity and all that kind of good stuff, but a lot of this is focused more so on the romance, the kind of the forbidden romance between Lancelot and Guinevere, and how Arthur kind of like deals with this along with other kind of people within his factions trying to usurp him and all this kind of good stuff. So if you typically like that kind of Arthurian legend and stuff, this CinemaScope spectacle, it delivers great performances, nice bombastic sequences, just everything you could want. You have just some really impressive moments here. There's like some really great villains in here who really make the most of their kind of time on screen. If you typically enjoy Arthurian tales, this one I think is one of the better mounted ones, and this one has been given 4K restoration of the original camera negative. A+ transfer. That's all I can pretty much say. Everything looks and sounds good. You get a introduction, you get a newsreel, you get a short film, you get cartoons, you get trailers. Overall, really good Blu-ray from the Warner Archive. My last new title from the Warner Archive is The Prisoner of Zenda. I know this is a highly requested title. I've been hearing about it for years. This is the 1952 version with Stuart Granger and Deborah Kerr. Deborah Kerr is a woman who I've been getting more into the last couple of years, and I do really, really like her. Stuart Granger does a nice job in a dual role as a man who is coming into this a new country from England, and he kind of learns that he is kind of like a distant relation to the man who's about to become king, and they look exactly alike. But of course, the king doesn't have facial hair where he does and everything. Little does he know there's a plot to take out the king before he can get his coronation, and people are going to try to usurp the throne. But whenever they take out the real king, the people who are trying to keep everything to from falling apart within this country task the new man, who is not actually the king, to kind of pose as the king, like shave off his facial hair and all that kind of stuff, and fool everyone into thinking that he is the real king until they can kind of get everything sorted. I didn't really know what this movie was about going into it, but once I figured it out, I was really on board. I like a nice mistaken undercover identity type tale. I had fun with it. I love the romance with Deborah Kerr. As I mentioned, I'm a big fan of her and just all that kind of good stuff. Lots of great dastardly people trying to go against them, including James Mason, who kind of ends the movie like they're setting up a sequel. So I'm not sure if they ever followed up, but he's just really conniving and just evil. And Stuart Granger, he does a really nice job here. Just nice swashbuckling, sword fighting and all that kind of good stuff, and nice romance. Everything is kind of balanced very well. So as I didn't know anything about this movie when I was going in, but I understand now why so many people were requesting it for so long. The wait is worth it because this Blu-ray looks really nice. 4K restoration of the Technicolor negative looks fantastic. Like I mentioned, they do Technicolor really well, and they are able to align all the strips to perfect color alignment. Everything blemish wise has been cleaned up. Everything sound wise sounds really good. You also get the 1922 silent version in here, which is really cool. You get 2 radio shows and a trailer. So having a whole other feature here is a really big win for fans. In addition to this, the original feature version. I know there's another version, I believe, from the 30s, which maybe we'll get someday. But for now, the Stuart Granger version I did really like and very much worth checking out for you swashbuckling fans out there. But now I'm going back a little bit for a couple of titles to some releases, I believe from 2018 from the Warner Archive. First off, we have Queen of Outer Space, a nice sci-fi tale about some astronauts who end up on a planet ruled by women and having to figure out how to survive in the face of this kind of masked leader who's trying to kind of rule over everyone and take them out, and has a vendetta that you come to learn just kind of some details about this woman behind the mask and her kind of lackeys. That kind of gives you some context and stuff. But it's a good sci-fi adventure with Zsa Zsa Gabor, not behind a mask, and her full beauty as the woman who's trying to help out these astronauts to kind of as kind of a rebellion to this kind of evil leader. It's a fun tale. I like it. I like a good sci-fi tale, a nice interplanetary adventure, and it's kind of campy but in a very enjoyable way. And so yeah, if you like a good classic sci-fi tale, I think Queen of Outer Space is a lot of fun. This was from a 2K scan of the Inner Positive, and it looks really good still. Still some really nice detail on the costumes and everything. I didn't notice any major nicks or scratches or anything. It's still been cleaned up quite well. No major softness in the source material. Maybe some of the like optical transitions and stuff get very momentarily a little bit soft, but overall they look really nice. And overall, just an impressive presentation. You get a commentary track on this one and a trailer. So yeah, sci-fi fans, Queen of Outer Space, this one is a fun one. Continuing on with our sci-fi vibes, we have When Dinosaurs Ruled the Earth. And this one is a little bit more on the trashy side, I say affectionately. It's not the best like movie necessarily, but there is some fun to this. One thing to really note on this one is there is no traditional dialogue. They speak a made-up language that is not subtitled, and you just kind of go on, like, just, you hear them speaking, and you just kind of, like, pick up the plot just from how they are saying things, not necessarily what they are saying, because you don't know. It's all gibberish to you. So there's that. It's basically, there's a community that like sacrifices like women to kind of appease, from what I understand, to appease the gods, and the woman who's like been chosen for the latest sacrifice doesn't really want to, and she kind of escapes, and they're trying to track her down, and they're all this kind of stuff. And there's crazy dinosaurs and stuff. They look more so like this and everything, but there's some really cool special effects work. Our woman here who is supposed to be sacrificed, from what I understand, she is played by I believe either a Penthouse or Playboy like playmate. She is a voluptuous, beautiful woman who is like running around and like scantily clad the entire time. This is the uncut version of the movie. I think there's a G-rated version of this movie when it originally appeared in the United States. This does include a little bit of nudity, not like insane or anything, but just like a few scenes where you do see some skin, a little bit extra skin, but mostly what I think a lot of people are going to be here for are the dinosaurs, which there are not as many as I would have liked. But what is there is very cool. So if you like old school kind of like stop motion animation dinosaur fun, that is cool. That does cause some of the video quality to go down ever so slightly, just because of like the opticals and like how things were filmed. It makes the transfer a little less than crisp, but everything looks as good as possible, and everything is blended quite well. Like I said, a little bit trashy, not the best movie, but When Dinosaurs Ruled the Earth, it's a decently fun watch. And this is another one that's from a 2K scan of the Interpositive. So as I was just mentioning, everything looks pretty good, especially when there's not a special effects shot on display. And everything holds together pretty well. And in terms of special features, there's only a trailer. But for this movie, everything holds up pretty well. And like I said, if you're on a sci-fi kick with Queen of Outer Space and you want to add another one, When Dinosaurs Ruled the Earth, decently fun time. But now my final title, going outside of the Warner Archive to Warner Brothers home entertainment, we have the Blu-ray upgrade of Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman. This isn't a DVD size packaging, which I do not love, but this is the 90s series that lasted 4 seasons, 87 episodes, in its original 1.37 by 1 full screen aspect ratio. So you get this big honkin' set here. I believe each season gets about 5 discs, so you can see all those here. No stack discs, thankfully, but they are all kind of like on these hubs overlapping one another, and you just get all 20 discs like that. Here's kind of the back. You can get the little bit of sense of the special features and the episodes. there's not a ton of special features. There's like 3 or 4 discs that actually include special features. But this, like I said, 90s series, I used to watch back in the day. It's been a while. It's not been like completely tainted by the fact that Dean Cain is a horrible person, but it does taint it a little bit. But kind of trying to remove real world aspects. I do have to admit, these two, Dean Cain and Terry Hatcher, this series is built around their chemistry in terms of it's about Lois and Clark. There are, of course, like villains of the week and stuff, or just things to uncover every week. But Lois and Clark and their dynamic is the reason I think a lot of people tuned in. And that was kind of to tend more towards like the villain of the week stuff, more towards the latter half of the show when everything started to kind of drop off quality wise a little bit. But whenever it was at its peak near the beginning, some red hot chemistry between them that really set this apart from other Superman, like film Superman stuff, because they put a lot of effort into kind of the romance, which I really enjoyed about this. If you want a really deep, like accurate Superman tale, I don't think you're really going to get that. This is for more of your casual fan who doesn't really care about the details about comic lore being 100% accurate. But if you just want like a good like superhero show that's like kind of a throwback to a time that doesn't really exist just because of how nerd culture has evolved, in good and bad ways, I think Terry Hatcher may be my favorite on-screen Lois Lane. I'd have to really think about it, but she's great. Not my favorite Superman, but Lois Lane definitely. And they do have good chemistry, and there are a lot of fun episodes throughout these 87 episodes. And yeah, if you're a fan of the series, it's a really nice Blu-ray upgrade. Like I said, the original aspect ratio has been maintained. One thing that hasn't been completely maintained is there are a handful of songs that they were not able to clear legally, that I believe were intact on the DVD set. So if you're especially sensitive to like certain song changes and you have the original DVD set, might want to hang on to those. But I believe there's only like maybe 5 or 6, I don't know, like a handful of songs over the series that did have to be changed. But I just wanted to have that caveat for those who are especially sensitive to that. But visually, it's a really nice upgrade on Blu-ray. The special effects shots, they don't look quite as crisp and clear just because how they were filmed. But the normal shots, they look like a huge upgrade from the old DVD releases, which I do own. There are the occasional other shots that just have a slight downturn every once in a while, but these are a really, really nice looking transfer. Everything looks natural. And for overall, I think this is a really, really impressive upgrade from the old DVD sets. DTS 2.0 audio sounds really nice. And you get a commentary track on the pilot. You get various featurettes scattered over a couple of discs throughout the first couple of seasons. If you're a fan of this series, I think it is worth the upgrade, even with a few shortcomings that keep it from being perfect. Visually, it's a really, really crisp and nice picture. And audio-wise, it sounds good too. If you're not completely tainted by some certain real-world issues with people, Lois and Clark, I still think holds up as a solid show, and I do quite enjoy it still, and I'm glad to have it on Blu-ray. That is my show. I hope you found something interesting in here that you want to add to your collection or add to your wish list for the forthcoming holiday season. If so, let me know. I want to know what I'm talking about that you're enjoying. If there's something you want me to talk about in the future, make sure to drop that in the comments as well. I always love your feedback. Make sure to share this with anyone that loves physical media, because I love connecting with more people and hearing from everyone. Make sure you subscribe to the Geek Vibes Nation YouTube channel. I do this every week, and just like the video, all that kind of good stuff. You guys are so great. I really appreciate it. I love doing this for you every week. I will be doing it again next week with a lot more in the way of physical media, some really great titles. But until next week, enjoy these movies.
There's always free cheese in a mousetrap. If we die, we die alone.